So my original plan was to record the deck profile before the casual weekly tournament took place, and then record the results of the tournament run with this deck after the fact. And I really like the juxtaposition of the before and after. You get my thoughts on the deck heading into it, uninfluenced by how the actual results went. But alas, my audio did not record. I did not catch it until trying to edit the video. So we're going to re-record the deck profile, and I'm going to try my best to not let the games and how it happened influence my actual discussion of the deck. But how this video will be broken down is, first I will be presenting what deck I brought, what the strategy of the deck is, what I hope it can do, and then I'll give you the deck list. After that is done, I'll cut to my post-tournament thoughts. How did I do in the tournament, and some final thoughts on the deck. But with that out of the way, the deck that I decided to bring, as you can see, guessed by the symbol here, it is an Earth deck, and it is Centaurbor. The reason I decided to bring Centaurbor here was because of the new Frostfall card in the deck. My deck explodes. Paleoth. So Paleoth here, we'll get all these out of the way and get it zoomed in, but Paleoth here, new Frostfall card, looking awesome. It is for 1 Earth, a 3 attack, 1 defense Celestial that when it is destroyed in battle or by an opponent's card effect, you can search your deck for up to 2 Earth Elestrals that have the same name. You send one to the Underworld and add the other to your hand. So the send to Underworld is mandatory, so if you only search out one, you do have to send it there. That's not a problem for this deck. The main target, of course, is the Centaurbor here. Great way to consistently add 2 and 3 costs in this instance to your hand, just to make it more consistent to be able to go into these guys as well. That is not all the tech this deck runs. Since Paleoth has to send a Centaurbor to Underworld for its effect to work to add 1 to hand, I do also run the Rise from the Ashes here to be able to resurrect the Centaurbor that I send. Really neat tech here. I think it's just a kind of a cool idea overall, and is technically applicable with any Earth Celestial that we have here. I just decided to do a Centaurbor because I think Centaubor's cool. Supporting this, because obviously this package is not enough for a deck, is an Earth Beatdown core. I just figured not only is it solid and proven to be solid, it also does have some notable synergies with helping me set up for a big Centaurbor play. Getting into the deck list, for the Centaurbor part of this deck, I run 2 Centaurbor, 3 Paleoth, and 2 Rise from the Ashes. Paleoth is our main enabler for the strategy, so just want to max that out. And then 2 Centaurbor is all I need. I don't want to run a third one because that can possibly just clunk up my hand with multiple, or even just 1 Centaurbor more than I need. And I don't think if I end up hard drawing into one and just having 1 Centaurbor in deck, if I have a Rise from the Ashes, I can easily just send the second one to set that one up. No problem. I don't necessarily need the Centaurbor to add the other copy to hand. But Paleoth also it can search other stuff than just Centaurbor. It can search any of my other Earth Elestrals, so I can always go that route. With the only Elestral that I run that I really don't want to send off Paleoth being the Vysceris. I want all 3 copies in rotation there. Then for Rise from the Ashes, only 2 copies because I thought this was just the best ratio. I want to see it because I want to pull off this combo, but at the same time, I only expect to really want to pull off 1 copy of it. I don't expect to cast multiple of it because it is very expensive, especially if I'm bringing out a Centaurbor. So I figured I don't want the full 3 copies. I don't want to be breaking on multiple copies, but 2 lets me see it consistently enough to be able to actually pull off the Centaurbor Resurrection play. And it also isn't bad to set up for a hard ascend of Centaurbor. Maybe if I find these 2 cards but not a Paleoth, I can just Rise from the Ashes, one of my 1-cost Elestrals, and then if I have another Elestral in hand, or maybe it's an Equilynx where I can Nexus or have another way to Nexus, I can just hard ascend into the Centaurbor after that. For the Elestrals part of the Earth Beatdown core, I run 3 Equilynx, 3 Rummagem, 3 Vysceris, and 3 Elechik. So Equilynx is just a great way to start disrupting back row. Back row is going to be the best way for the opponent to interrupt a Centaurbor. And while Centaurbor can pop cards, it's also nice just to have the option to start putting pressure on the opponent's back row right away to make it easier to stick a Centaurbor and just attack right away, or even use Centaubor's 1 pop to disrupt a back row, or even an Elestral. It just makes those lines feel a lot better. And I really wanted ways to start contesting stuff as early as possible, so I'm not just trying to sit on Centaurbor, give my opponent time to out it, just trying to deal with their back row. So really strong card there, definitely 3 of. Rummagem, just a great consistency tool to find my Earth Elestrals, so that I wanted it to be a 3 of. And then the Vysceris, 3 copies of it, just because it is a very strong Elestral, and it's an element for Earth. Just being able to attack over something with its 5 attacks, spawn on another one, just gets you great board presence. which also is notable for this deck since we're trying to ascend into a 3 cost. If we can protect 2 Vysceris, one that I cast out, I can easily just convert these 2 into a Centaurbor in the next turn. Equilynx also similarly works. If I can set up some Nexus plays and keep it around, I can always Nex it to itself if it's 5 turn and then just ascend into the Centaurbor. And it's also a great rise from target if I have a way to Nexus to it as well. And notably, it can set me up for a Centaurbor pop as well. Then 3 copies of Elechik. Demeter is going to be very important for this deck, so I want to make sure I can get it. It just helps my guys hit over all my opponent's guys, apply pressure, get them to start using counter runes, and it makes it feel a lot better to cast out stuff such as Rummagem and the Paleoth, which have lower attack stats because Demeter can pump it up so I can still start contesting the board. And then for the rune portion of the Earth Beatdown package, I got 3 Demeter and 2 Foloi Forest. As I mentioned, Demeter is very important for this deck with the Elechik, so I also want to max this one out, so just maximum consistency to find it. And then 2 Foloi Forest, I would love to run 3. It's great, especially since stadiums are seeing a lot more play with stuff like Race to the Top, Rise from the Depths, Stoke the Forge, but I just couldn't find the extra slot for this Foloi Forest. But 2, still great. I can easily hold these because it's not like I always need the stat increase to be able to contest stuff with Demeter, but I can always hold it if they set up a stadium or for a really opportune moment to be able to play it. And notably, Foloi Forest is great with Centaurbor, giving it that invoke protection, so now they have to be able to out the Forest to be able to Earthquake or resting on it. Definitely would love a 3rd copy of this one, but 2 I think will service this deck just fine. Rounding off the invoke runes I've run for the deck, more in the staple territory, 3 Earthquake, 2 Ambrosia, 3 Earthquake. There's no reason for this deck not to run this card. It's good. It sees playing decks if it can justify it, and it's an element. So this card just lets me more easily clear Elestrals without having to worry about possibly battle tricks that my opponent has access to. It can also clear stuff that have on destruction effects, which is really nice. It's just super versatile. It can even clear Elestrals, so I can just start putting pressure onto face. Even a deck like this that can easily beat over Elestrals, this card still definitely has the utility that it needs. I definitely like, if I really need to get rid of an Elestral, I don't have to worry about running to a Tsunami or a Shield through attacking. I can just Earthquake it. 2 Ambrosia, this is another card I'd love 3 of, but I needed space for the Centaurbor and the Rise Froms. So only 2 of it, just recover extra resources. There's no reason for this deck to run it. And probably even more reason for it to run it since I do have the Rise from Centaurbor stuff, which does make the deck generally more expensive. But extra resources, survive longer, and play more cards will always be good. Then rounding off with the counter runes, this is a very interesting lineup. 2 Tsunami, 2 Altar of the Stars, or Altar of Stars, 3 Gorgon's Gaze, 2 PTA, and 2 Shield of Achilles. So a lot of 2-ofs here. Why is that? Well, part of it was I just didn't have enough space in the deck, so I needed to cut back somewhere, but I still wanted to have the plethora of options here with the idea that I can test and really whittle down these ratios later on if I want to keep playing the deck. 3 Gorgon's Gaze is just the strongest counter rune out there, and since I want to be playing counter runes, I want to be disrupting my opponent's plays, it just made sense to max this one out. Now, as for why I didn't max out the others, we'll start with Tsunami here. I expect a lot of water to be played since it's looking to be very meta, and people seem to generally just really like the element. On top of that, decks that aren't running primary water are still teching in water spirits to be able to play around Tsunami. So I didn't want to brick on Tsunamis when I need other counter runes, especially with such a limited count. So I thought it would be a good idea to cut down to 2 to hopefully see it when I need it against decks that aren't really running water or aren't trying to play around it, but not brick on multiple copies of these if I'm up against water. With Poison Tipped Arrow and Shield of Achilles, kind of same situation. Against Lavalith, Shield does not feel great. And I remember when, I think it was Coder who was saying this, when I was discussing Earth Beatdown, but it feels bad into Lavalith. I mean, you set up your Demeter, they can just cast out a Lavalith, and it puts on a lot of pressure. So I really want counter runes that were live to Lavalith. Thus, I didn't want to hedge more into Shield, and thus the 2 copies, but I still wanted it for any random shenanigans, since it is a casual tournament, you never know what you're going to face. And Shield is still really great for tempo plays, which notably Poison Tipped Arrow isn't always great for tempo, to keep tempo, because you can still be attacked and dealt damage. So 2 Poison Tipped Arrow just because it is great against Lavalith to kind of get it off the board. It can also get a few other things off the board, which is nice, and in general is just live against all the rune popping stuff, which I really did value. And as I said, I didn't really want to max out the Tsunami, so thus I felt like Poison Tipped Arrow is just a good option to have in general. And then only 2 Altar of Stars because it requires setup. Technically, probably Poison Tipped Arrow can become a 3rd copy of each of these, but again, I was just kind of valuing the options heading into this tournament and figured that these ratios can be narrowed down with some testing. But Ultra Stars is still very nice. Again, could be chained to Lavalith and other rune poppers. And on top of that, the Nexus lets me get, well, one, this is just a versatile card. If my opponents are Tsunami, be able to flip up, I can switch something back to attack. But also, for Centaurbor specifically, even if I only have one Elestral, with Ultra, if I can Nexus a Spirit to it, it can then set up for a Centaurbor Ascension, and I don't even have to do it on my opponent's turn. I can always just cast this on my turn to set that play up, which is, I think will be a neat way to enable that. Probably not too common, but still just a nice line of play to have access to. As for the spirits, I'm running 2 Zaptor, 3 Leviaphin, and 15 Teratlas. So of course primary earth, so a ton of earth here. But 2 Zaptor, I think I only need 2 just to be able to cast out my Elechik. On average, I should be seeing 1 to 2 at most per game, and this also enables me if my Elechik gets bounced back or Gorgon's Gaze, it still gives me a second use to find my Demeter. So 2 felt good there. I don't really need it for any counter things. I did bump up Leviaphin to 3 despite only running 2 Leviaphin, and that's so I can always enchant stuff with water to play around Tsunami. And then the rest can just be Teratlas because my deck is primary earth. And with the deck list out of the way, let's cut to after the tournament, which is before this happened, funny enough, unfortunately. But we'll cut to that now, and you'll get to see my final thoughts after the tournament concluded and how the run went. All right, the tournament has concluded, and as you can see, I made 4th place overall with a 3-1 record. Not too shabby if I do say so myself, especially for a deck like this. So, just kind of going over the run in general, my first match was up against Set 1 Beatdown, and I did lose that match. So powerful comeback here, losing my first game, but ending up being able to pull out 4th overall, gain 3 consecutive wins after that. Pretty much what happened was my hand just got cluttered. Part of it, I need to check my sleeves. I can't tell if it's the sleeves, the cards curling with the hollows or whatnot, but when I was shuffling, I was noticing clumping issues. Like my 2 Centaurbor in my final match, these 2, no matter how many times I shuffled, ended up together. And I'm always trying to be diligent to shuffle and make sure that I am splitting the deck in half, getting a really good riffle shuffle. So I'm wondering if some of the warping is causing that. So I'm going to be looking into that. So that could have led to some of the clumping issues I saw in that game, because pretty much while I did find a Centaurbor, like my opening hand wasn't that bad. I didn't think it was. I did have a Centaurbor hand that ended up being a brick because I couldn't mount board pressure against Earth Beatdown, couldn't get anything to stick. But also what happened was I just bricked on a ton of Demeters. Like I searched out one with the Elechik, that was great, and proceeded to draw into my 2 other ones, which wasn't great. And I ended up just not having any follow-up Elestrals to play, ended up not having to go no normal cast for like 2 turns, and by the time I found Elestral, even though it outed what my opponent had, all it took was an Earthquake and Elestral, and they had it. So, but unfortunate, but that's how it rolls. Second game went a lot better. I was up against Locagon with Zephyrog tech. So pretty much they were playing worse Locagon. I was playing worse Earth Beatdown. So that was fun. And pretty much what I think really contributed to me winning that was my opponent's hand just kind of got cluttered with Locagon and Zephyrog, and they just ran out of gas. And it was my hand didn't get cluttered, so I was able to just beat them down with my Earth Beatdown stuff. Then in game 3, I won against the Water Nexus deck. This one being more true Water Nexus. I think it was set 1 Water Nexus, waiting still for some Frostfall cards. I don't fully remember, but no, it was set 2. There's Chautauquas, or at least the star stuff. British Water Nexus running Chautauqua, and there I just got a great hand to be able to deal with it. It went very smoothly. I was able to find all my answers to stuff, and I actually did pull off my Centaurbor combo in that game in the best way possible. So of course I was head on board, crashed a Paleoth, because why not? Grab my Centaur, which put on a ton of pressure. My opponent really couldn't out it. Had the Rest on Your Laurels in hand with the out to my Stadium, so I got the full setup here. My opponent had an out, but thankfully I did keep an Equilynx on board, so the Laurels did not work. So my opponent couldn't get this out of the way, and then I ended up top decking Rise from the Ashes the next turn and was able to cast out this second Centaurbor, so I just won off of 2 Centaurbors on board, and that was a lot of fun there. That's definitely an outlier, not the norm. Then my final match was against Little Guy's Water, and I got the win there, and it just, I think, was an ideal matchup for me. It was still a set 1 variant, so... And I was playing against Matt, and he was saying how that was probably his worst matchup, and I did just generally find all my outs. Sonicor got an Earthquake, he rised Sonicor, I drew a Demeter, I already had a Demeter in hand that could pump an Elechik to crash, but then just double Demeter meant I was able to attack over and maintain a board tempo there. So all in all, this deck, my final verdict on it, did it perform? Yeah, 3-1, that's pretty good. But I will say it's just worth worse Earth Beatdown. I was kind of alluding to that when I was discussing the round 2 match. The Earth Beatdown stuff really carried this deck, and I felt like the Paleoths were really clunky in the deck because I was like, all right, do I go Paleoth to try to set up that big play, or do I just throw out an Equilynx or a Vysceris? Those ended up just being better most of the time. I'm just happy I didn't brick on Centaurbors in hand and Rise from the Ashes in hand more often, because I also was anticipating that to happen. So really, just play regular Earth Beatdown if you want a good deck. If you want a fun deck, yeah, this was pretty fun. You sometimes get a stupid win off of Centaurbor. I do wish there was just a better home for this, and maybe there is. Maybe there's like a good core that can be built out of this that really just kind of throws Centaurbor in as the top end, and that is optimal. Because personally for me, if I'm just playing a worse version of another deck, most of the time I'd rather just go play the other deck as my final verdict. There, really fun time for the first casual tournament, one every Tuesday for this month and hopefully into foreseeable future. And yeah, maybe I'll record more of these for those tournaments. So if you enjoyed this video, please let me know down in the description below. Is there anything you'd like me to see different, or do you have any suggestions for future decks I should run? I still haven't decided what I want next week, and it could be fun to get some of you all to suggest decks for me to try out. And if you've enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like, subscribing, and turning on the notification bell so you're notified when I do upload more content. With all that being said though, look forward to more content coming out real soon.